Okay, thank you. I think in the debate over public expenditure cuts, the 4 billion euro that the government is considering, that progressives are right to focus on issues of equity, protection of public services, and protection of the living standards of those on the lowest income. My fear, however, is if that's all we argue, we will lose the debate. Because the debate today is a wall-to-wall sound. The government is broke. Public spending is out of control. We're borrowing 400 million euro a week. If we don't confront that issue head on, we will always be on the defensive when we put forward our arguments for social equity. I believe that we should actually challenge the economic orthodoxy on its own terms, in its own terrain. That's the issues of debt, borrowing, and deficit financing. So what I want to do is just, for the few minutes, take two proposals and compare them and see what we can come up with. I hope this works. See it? Okay, let's start with the McCarthy report's pièce de résistance, cutting 17,000 jobs off the public sector payroll. Now, the ESRI earlier this year road tested this proposal when it subjected a number of fiscal measures to what they called an economic impact assessment. And that is, what they did was they assumed all these measures would reduce government expenditure by €1 billion. What would the impact be on the economy? And then on the other end, how much would you save? So as we can see, if we cut 17,000 public sector workers from the payroll, by the second year, the GNP will decline by 1% or 1.2 billion euro. Consumption will fall by 0.9%. That's about 750 million taken out of consumer spending. Unemployment will rise by 0.7%. To put a number on that, that's 15,000 more people either on the live register, emigrating, or dropping out of the labor force. And what would be the impact on the borrowing requirement? 0.1%. Oh, let's just see if we can work this out. We have just lengthened and deepened the recession. We have just cut domestic demand, which drives enterprises selling goods and services into the domestic economy to the wall. More wage freezes, more job losses. We've thrown thousands of people out of work, all to reduce the annual deficit from 12.2% to 12.1%. I have just one question. Who in the world dreamt up this proposal? It is a fundamental fallacy to believe that a cut of 1 billion euro in the off government expenditure will equal a cut of 1 billion euro off the borrowing requirement. As you can see, under the ESRI model, 1 billion cut reduced expenditure. However, 1.2 billion cut in our income, merely to save 480 million euros. That's not a very good economic strategy. That's not a very good way of fiscal consolidation. Now, let's take a different proposal. This is based on ICTU's proposal for a public enterprise holding company that they proposed 3 years ago in a policy document on governance of state bodies. It was recently updated by Fine Gael, fleshed out in Fine Gael's new ERA proposals. And just simply put, you would bring together all the public enterprises together and establish new enterprises with the purpose of implementing an infrastructural investment program of about 18 billion euros over the next 4 years, and a program into telecommunications, energy, bioenergy, waste and water, green construction, which would be capable of generating 100,000 jobs over 4 years. Now, I think that's a Fine Gael number. I think that's a bit high, but 70, 80,000, I'd run with that. So what I did was I modeled this using the multipliers produced by Philip Lane and Augustin Beatrice in TCD. And I also used very conservative public finance multipliers and assumed that the exchequer borrowing requirement would rise by 9 billion. The exchequer will be contributing 9 billion to this 18 billion euro program, the rest from non-exchequer sources consistent with Fine Gael's proposal. What happens after the 4th year? The GDP increases by nearly 10% above the government's projections in the April budget. After the fourth year, the annual deficit actually falls by 0.8%. Now, it will increase in the first year, and possibly the second year, until the impact of the investment comes to the economy. But after the fourth year, it will decrease by 0.8%. The kicker is that the gross debt decreases by 2.6%. That's the overall debt level. The reason why that happens is very simple. Unlike the McCarthy proposal, what we've done is, okay, we've added 9-10 billion onto the gross debt because of this. But the economy has risen higher because of the effects of the stimulus. In other words, the debt becomes less of a proportion of your overall wealth. So let's recap these two proposals. We have one which suggests that by cutting 17,000 public sector jobs, the effect of this proposal will be to weaken the economy, cut domestic demand, increase unemployment, and have a measurable effect on the deficit and the debt going forward. This proposal B would suggest by investing into the economy, investing into your infrastructure, you increase growth, you increase consumption, you increase employment, and you have a much more positive effect on the debt and deficit going forward in the medium term. Now, these are just models worked out on a computer, on an Excel sheet, with multipliers and all that. You can spend all night doing that. That's correct. I mean, much would depend, in terms of both proposals, much would depend on internal and external factors, the timing of the implementation, other proposals that are, other measures that are being done at the same time, and crucially, in the case of an investment program, it would depend on the quality of the political management. So these should be seen only as signposts, but these are important signposts because they suggest that one set of proposals, a deflationary strategy, takes you in one direction, and another set of proposals, investment, takes you in another. And I just talked about physical investment. There's social infrastructure investment to be modeled. Those multipliers to be modeled. An early childhood education network, a free primary care, free primary health care network. I think Mary was talking about social protection, and that was brought up this morning. Ironically, when they worked out the multipliers under the Obama stimulus program, very good return on capital investment. Very good return on purchasing goods and services from the private sector. Very good return in terms of aid and assistance to the states to them to carry out their capital investment. The highest multipliers under the Obama program were those that extended unemployment benefit and gave extra income to those on food stamps. And for those of you not familiar with recipients of food stamps, they're similar to those on supplementary welfare here in the state. They are some of the lowest income people there. Those were the highest multipliers. It's essentially, I don't want to sound indifferent, but they really are people at that stage are just conduits to transfer the money from the state back into their local economy. I don't want to reduce people to that, but that's essentially how it works. And I think it's also ironic, and this is something you should remember going forward, it's amazing that the best thing for the economy happens to be the best thing for people. That's not something we should forget. So, as I said, these are just signposts. They lead us in one direction. But what it tells us is this. Fiscal consolidation strategies cannot and will not work until we first have consolidated, stabilized, and enhanced economic growth and employment. It is only then it will work. That is, broadly speaking, the formula pursued in every other country. You can't cut your way out of a recession. You can only grow. In conclusion, yeah. A few months ago, Unite the Union published its Growing the Economy, a comprehensive set of, a substantial number of proposals, not comprehensive, but a number of proposals, investment stimulus proposals that challenged the deflationary orthodoxy. In the last couple of weeks, David Begg has called for a rejection of fiscal conservatism and policies that would stimulate the economy. We need more of this. We need to get into this debate because as we can see, we can win on their terms. We can win on the issues of debt, borrowing, and deficit. If we enter into this debate, backed up by facts, analysis, and concrete programs, we can win. And in conclusion, I just want to say this about ICTU's National Day of Action, bringing this back down into the street, if you will, into the offices and into the factories. It is vital that that day of action succeed. It is absolutely imperative that we do everything possible to stop the government from implementing the cuts. Not just because they will shred public services and shred the living standards of those on lowest incomes. There's no maybe about it. That will happen. But just as importantly, these cuts will postpone the end of the recession, postpone the start of economic recovery without doing anything to contain the debt. We must oppose the cuts in order to defend the economy from the fiscal vandalism of Fianna Fáil. That's why if trade unions, social and community organizations, left political parties, and progressives from all across the spectrum, if we come together and fight, and I mean really fight these cuts, we'll be right. Thanks.